सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। There should have been papers given to you. So these would be the invocation verses that we will chant for Bhagavatam. So just follow along. Satchidanandarupaya Vishvotpatyadihetave Tapatraya Vinashaya Shri Krishnaya Vayam Numaha. निगमकल्पतरोर्गलितं फलं शुकमुखादमृतद्रवसंयुतं पिबत भागवतं रसमालयं मुहुरहो रसिका भुवि भावुकाः। जन्माद्यस्य यतोऽन्वयादितरतः चार्थेष्वभिज्ञस्वराट् तेने ब्रह्महृदाय आदिकवये मुह्यन्ति यत्सूरयः। तेजो वारिमृदां यथा विनिमयो यत्र त्रिसर्गो मृषा धाम्ना स्वेन सदा निरस्तकुहकं सत्यं परं धीमहि। धर्मप्रोज्झितकैतवोऽत्र परमो निर्मत्सराणां सतां वेद्यं वास्तवमत्र वस्तु शिवदं तापत्रयोन्मूलनम्। श्रीमद्भागवते महामुनिकृते किं वा परैरीश्वरः सद्यो हृद्यवरुध्यतेऽत्र कृतिभिः शुश्रूषुभिस्तक्षणात् शुश्रूषुभिस्तक्षणात्। It was with his blessings that we started Bhagavatam last year, and I guess it should be called his blessings that exactly we had 1 year's gap, almost 1 year, exactly 1 year's gap, and I am extremely happy to come back to Bhagavatam. I was missing this. This is such a beautiful scripture. That's why of all the Puranas, it is called Mahapurana, greatest epic. Now in this greatest epic, we have so far covered various cantos. Cantos are segments which has again been further divided into chapters, and each chapter has various shlokas. So the first part is Bhagavat Mahatmya, which is taken from the Padma Purana. After having understood the greatness of this great epic, then in the most of the Upanishads, or all of the, not Upanishads, Puranas start with Suta and Shaunakadi Rishis Samvada. Shaunakadi rishis are the ones who are performing great yaga, great yajna, satra yaga. And in that satra yaga, the way they used to function is early in the morning, they would dedicate their time for the yajna and havan karma, the whole day. Then in the afternoon, late afternoon, they would have some little executive lunch, not a very high calorie intensive lunch, but a light lunch. And then they would come to Suta Mahashaya, who would be requested by these Shaunakadi rishis to give the Purana. So that is how we have 18 Puranas. So in their Satra Yaga is where that was the platform for Sut Maharaj to give this Puranas. And now understanding this Purana is unlike Bhagavad Gita, unlike any other scripture, because of the interconnectivity. Now this is how it starts, that it was a conversation between Shaunakadi rishis and Sutaji. So Sutaji starts saying that this Bhagavat Mahapurana was first given by Shuka Maharaj to Parikshita. Parikshita, who had taken Prayopavesha, who was cursed that in next 7 days he would die. He did not take it so intensely that he would be weeping, but he took it in a very positive stride. He, instead of wasting his time, he said, let me not waste any moment of my time, let me think about the Lord. Now his intensity, his sankalpa was so strong that Shuka Maharaj found him where he was seated and came and said, I will help you think about the Lord these 7 days. So Guru comes to the Sishya, looking at the Sankalpa Shakti of that Sishya. So the Samvada starts, and Parikshita, the way his name has come, Ikshita, Ikshita to see. Parikshita, Parikshita is intensely seeing, intensely looking for something. So when he was in his mother's womb was attacked by Ashwathama with nothing less than a Brahmastra. So his mother cried out for help, and Lord Krishna enters the womb to protect that little one from the effect of Brahmastra. And there he had seen Lord Vishnu in his Chaturbhuja Rupa, 4-hand, 4-armed Rupa. And since he has come out, he had been in constant search. Who is that one who has protected me in the womb? So he used to look out for that person. So he was named as Parikshita, the one who is constantly looking for God. So in that manner, every one of us who is looking for God, not just in the times of our miseries, but intensely longing for the Lord, could be called a Parikshita. And to this Parikshita, Shuka Maharaj narrates the story. So we have already seen through 6 cantos. Now the 7th canto. It's a very small canto in comparison with other cantos. It has just 15 chapters. But this canto will focus on the different kinds of vasanas that exist. Different kinds of categories of people that exist. The first one to deal with is Asura Vasana. Asura Vasana is, you will know it because we will be going through the Asura's life. Now, why should we go through the Asura's life in Bhagavatam when we have to think about the Lord? It is something like, on a blackboard, you cannot write with a black charcoal. In order to see the beauty of what you are writing, there needs to be a contrast. On a white canvas, you can lay out beautiful colorful patterns so that it stands out. Similarly, on the background of this Asura pravritti, Asura vasanas, is the other vasanas which are depicted, which is of Deva vasana and the Manava vasana. The Asura vasana is depicted by Hiranyakashipu, and the Daiva vasana is depicted by his own son Prahalada. And this story was being narrated to Yudhishthira, and there comes another dialogue between, and then Yudhishthira's life is dealt with, who is the Manava or Manushya vasana. So this gives a very beautiful picture as to what we should not have in vasanas, what we have in vasanas, and what we should aim for, how to improve, how to move to a better platform in life as a comparison in our own lives. And whenever we get such comparative strokes, what we end up doing is compare the rest of them around us. It was, I think, in one of the camps, this comes even in Bhagavad Gita, Daivasura Sampat Vibhaga Yogaha. And in that chapter, Lord extensively deals with what is Asura Sampatti and what is Daiva Sampatti, the same kind of format. And there we find it, I mean, we were explaining it to the kids there, and we gave them a chart as to, if you have this kind of vasana, you can give yourself a point, and then a tally as to how much of positive points you have, how much of negative points you have. Made it easy for them to understand their own self. And during the lunchtime, I think, I found these 3 kids who were sitting in the corner and heavily calculating, very intensely calculating. No, this is negative, no, this is positive. They were arguing constantly. And then I paid attention to what they were discussing. They were evaluating the Asura Sampatti and Daiva Sampatti of everybody who had come in the camp. Very intensely involved. So may we not use this knowledge to brand the world around us, but intensely use it for our own upliftment. May we remember that always. Now, in this particular thing, what exactly is vasana, if we go into the basics? Because those who have heard, those who have listened to Vedanta, after a certain while, you come to a dead zone. If you have attended enough study groups, invariably you come across this one question which is like a stumbling block which never moves forward. What is the question? We have been explained that we perform different activities, different karma, because of the inner laid out vasanas or imprints. Because of those imprints, each one of us is unique. What we do is unique, what we expect is unique, how we do what we do is unique. It's so different from anybody else that you can compare or you can look into. And these imprints are so strong that they move out into our mind as desires. In order to fulfill those desires, the mind whips the organs of action into the world so that there is fulfillment of that desire. As you get fulfilled with that desire, that particular vasana becomes stronger, and it forces you to repeat the same pattern again. Over a period of time, it becomes your habit, it becomes your character, it becomes your own personality. So this much is very logically understood. So where comes this stumbling block? So then we ask, where did that vasana come from? Very genuine question. They said, Purva karma anubhava. Purva janma. Whatever we have done in the earlier lives, those imprints are these vasanas. So earlier activity created this vasana, and this vasana is whipping us into action. Understood. Where did that karma start? It should have a vasana. So now it boils down that when the world started, when he created this world, there should have been a clean slate. So what was it? Was it karma or was it vasana in the beginning? And this is a classic checkmate situation. And we go on arguing in circles and circles and circles. The answer is neither. Neither the vasana is first nor the karma is first. They both are the byproducts. Then what is it that triggers off this karma and vasana cycle? The answer is given as ajnana, ignorance. Ignorance of what? We had to go through several texts to come to this answer. I have given you in 5 minutes of discussion that it is ignorance which is the cause. Now ignorance of what? It is not ignorance of mathematics, ignorance of geography, ignorance of physics, ignorance of chemistry. It is ignorance of our own true nature. So I know myself, I know exactly what I am. I am not ignorant, I am not a fool. How can you even generalize it and say that we are all ignorant of our true nature? Then comes the scriptural standpoint saying that this entire creation is nothing but that Supreme alone, which means, which presupposes that you, me and everything in this universe is nothing but that Supreme alone. In our Balavihar classes, we start with the Guru Stotram. In that Guru Stotram, the first shloka, this is what we teach. What is the first shloka? Akhanda mandalakaram vyaptam yena characharam. Akhanda mandalakaram vyaptam yena characharam. Chara achara, this entire universe of animate and inanimate, conscious and not conscious. That which is throbbing with life and that which seems to be lifeless, insentient. The entire universe is permeated, is pervaded with that principle, that aspect of Supreme alone. It can be nothing other than that Supreme. And hence you are that Supreme. Now, come on Swami, just stop kidding, and we have had a tough day today and then you start your lectures with kidding like this. Where do I find myself Supreme? I don't find myself Supreme. I am always tossed and I have to be running around with so many things. I don't at all feel Supreme. Everybody has a complaint that they are not, they feel limited, they feel obstructed, they don't feel that freedom. And we attribute it to various situations, various people that are around us. Some attribute it to wife, some attribute it to husband, some attribute it to children, some attribute it to in-laws. We attribute it to anything that we can lay our hands on. That this is why I don't feel free, this is why I am not having my freedom. But in actual sense, what is that freedom? It is not freedom from the people around you, freedom from the responsibilities with you. It is not freedom in these things. It is in spite of these things, being free from the identification of wrong perceptions. And these wrong perceptions are called Jada Buddhi. I mean, this is what the scriptures say. Don't look at me. How? First you say that we are ignorant and now you call it Jada Buddhi. But this is what the scriptures say. So what is Jada Buddhi? To consider myself as this body, mind and intellect, to consider myself as all these modifications that happen around me and be tossed and moved with these modifications is what me. Considering this is the ignorance. Whereas what exactly I am that supreme. Ignorant of that. Anything that comes across, we identify with it, we become one with it, and we are being tossed here and there with our own identifications. Now in these various identifications, not anybody here or anywhere is perfect. No one is perfect. Each one has their own pluses and minuses. Our own inner side, when we look into it, we have our own negativities and positives. It is what we identify with makes us our personality. And it seems like it is easier to identify with all the wrong things. And it is difficult to identify and nourish the positive things. So there is a struggle always between this positive and negative. The next step beyond this struggle of positive and negative is that stage which is untouched by this dvandva, duality. That is essentially divine. But in order to reach there, we need to start from nourishing ourselves, equipping ourselves with more of positivity, which gives us a firm ground to kick off into that plane which can transcend this duality. As long as we are stuck in this negativities, it does not give us enough strength to move forward in a life's journey, as a soul's journey into that supreme. So now that journey is being discussed in terms of the lives of Hiranyakashipu, Prahlada and Yudhishthira. So these 15 chapters, you can roughly say that 5 chapters discusses with each of these mentalities. And the best of it is Prahlada's Charitra. One thing to understand. Whenever we talk of ourselves, we blame for our inadequacies, we blame our environment, our society, our parents, our education, our political system, our economic situation. We can blame everybody, everything around us. I am like this because of these factors. But imagine Prahlada, who was born from a asura. Who was his father? Hiranyakashipu. So you could always claim that, genetic disorder. Why am I an asura? Because I am genetic. My father was an asura, so I am asura. We see it, right? Your father was a politician, you become a politician. Your father was a doctor, you become a doctor. So your father is asura, you also is asura. But no, Prahlada chose to be different. What did he do? His influence was so strong that he did not fall prey to the asura lakshanas around him. In fact, wherever he went, see, his name was Prahlada, Ahlada. Prakarshena ahladam karoti janan sarvan iti Prahlada. Wherever he went, he gave that ahlada, happiness, to everybody. That was the strong commitment, that was a great bhakta lakshana that he had. That brings about what Gurudev used to say. There are two kinds of people, cultured and uncultured. The cultured come to give you happiness, and the uncultured leave to give you happiness. Now here he is Prahlada, who is surrounded with asuras. Right since he was born, he was surrounded with asuras. Right from there, he was treated to be an asura. He was forced, threatened to be an asura. And nothing seemed to work on him. In fact, wherever he went, his presence was so strong that people automatically started chanting the name of the Lord. That should be the kind of commitment of a bhakta. Instead of blaming it on, kya karu, mere papa aise the. My childhood was, typically you will hear that in this country a lot, right? A tormented childhood. It cannot be worse than Prahlada's life. But he was such that he would give happiness to anybody. His presence would create that environment wherein people would feel at ease to chant the name of the Lord. But there are others also who can create that situation wherein you are forced to take the name of the Lord. There was this father and a cab driver from New York who arrived at the pearly gates. Or you can change the story and say a brahmachari and a cab driver from New York reached the Chitragupta. Either way, it doesn't matter. So the cab driver is in line before this brahmachari, and he looks into the accounts, looks into the entire debit and credit account of his papa and punya, and he says, good, here is your golden staff, golden robes, and that palace, beautiful palace you see, that is yours. Aish karo jao. Enjoy. Now this brahmachari who was standing behind, he felt very happy. If a cab driver who drives such rustic and is always cuss words on his mouth, if he is given such a treatment in the heaven, I who have been dedicating my life, entire life for the Lord, I should get a better treatment. Chalo. That is confirmed. So he goes in. So Chitragupta looks into his account and gives him a wooden staff, cotton clothes, and one rustic apartment somewhere in the corner. And then this brahmachari stomps his foot down and says, this is not fair. That fellow is given such a good treatment, whereas I who have spent for the Lord, you don't give me any consideration. Then Chitragupta said, it seems, whenever you spoke about the Lord, people who would come for attending your classes, lectures, would always sleep. They would never think of the Lord. But this cab driver, whenever he would drive, both the people in his car as well as people around would immediately think of the Lord. So he did a better job than you. So yes, there are people who can invoke that kind of a situation that you constantly take the name of the Lord. But Prahlada's situation was entirely different. It was not out of fear. It was ahlada janaka. It was such pleasure, such great joy that in his presence people would start chanting the name of the Lord. Including the Asura Gurukulas, gurus would start dancing with him, chanting the name of the Lord. That was his kind of influence. Now before I get to this main part of this canto, one more point and then we will come there. Whenever I talk to the parents and kids together, I usually hear, my kid is actually a gem. 24 karat gold. But I don't know, Swamiji, these days, I think it is his company, the friends that he is sitting with, it's not a good company and he is getting influenced. So I tell them, go read Prahalada's life. Not to the kid, first to the parents. And if your kid is such a good gem, such a great 24 karat gold, his influence on his friends should be so strong that the friends should change. Rather than in their presence, he change. Having thus understood that these are the three kinds of asanas, we will first get into the story. This is the 7th canto. I kind of feel excited that after so many days I am getting back to Bhagavatam. Parikshita Uvacha. Parikshit ji asked, inquired with Shukadev ji. Samah priya suhrun brahman bhutanam bhagavan swayam indrasyarthe katam daityan avadhid vishamo yatha. He said, hey Shukadev ji, they say Bhagavan, Lord, is samaha priyaha. He does not have any partiality in his outlook. He is always equipoised and he treats anybody who comes with that, and he showers them with his grace. He is always that balanced. But then, whenever we hear the stories, why is it that it seems like Lord always takes to the paksha, he becomes a pakshapati. He takes to the side of Indra to kill all the daityas and asuras. He should have been equipoised, he should have been balanced. Why does he always give support to these devas? And he says, if he is really the Lord, I think he should have been balanced and treat it in a different way. And the way he puts it at the end, he says, Itinas sumahabhaga narayana gunan prati samshayan. There is kind of doubt that is raising in my head, and which is not good because I am doubting my own Lord. Somewhere my dedication to the Lord is wavering because I see him not that balanced. He is always supporting this Indra and the other devas, and he is killing all these daityas. It is not good. This is not fair. So Shukadev ji, being a great rishi, he did not say life is not fair. Just live up to it, go. Shukadev ji says, Sadhu prashtam maharaja hares charitam adbhutam yad bhagavatam ahatmyam bhagavad bhaktir vardhanam. He says, Sadhu prashtam, you have asked a very good question. Good that you came out and asked instead of keeping it inside. And this gives us another opportunity to hear about Lord and his greatness. And it is this Bhagavata Katha, Bhagavata Mahatmyam, it is the greatness of this Bhagavatam, that the more you hear about the Lord, the more it creates bhakti in your heart. We keep asking questions, right? One of the main questions is, how do I increase devotion in my heart? How could I bring in more devotion towards the Lord in my heart? And this is the answer. See, even in the bhautika, jagat, in the outside world, material world, there is something that you want to buy, something that you want to own, something that you want to have. If you look into the genesis, origin of that particular desire, where did it start from? Most of it starts from your Shravanam. You must have heard about it, you must have seen people talking about it. And the more you hear about it, your inquisitiveness towards that increases. And then probably you went ahead, saw that and did a research on that and then found this is the thing that I should have. It all starts with Shravanam. That is called Bhoga, which also starts from Shravanam. Then you start doing Dhyanam, and that is where Bhagavad Gita shloka comes. Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsaha Sangasteshu Bhajayate. Even for that Dhyanam there is a Mula, there is a source. It starts with your Shravanam. First you hear about it. Similarly, here he says, if you have to increase bhakti on the Lord, you have to hear more about Him. And good that you have come out and asked this question. He says, Giyate paramam punyam rishibhir naradadibihi natva krishnaya munaye kathayishye hara harehe katham nirgunopi hyajo vyaktaha Bhagavan prakrutehe paraha. Bhagavan prakrutehe paraha. The Lord is beyond the Prakriti. Prakriti is of the three gunas. Prakriti is of this plurality. Prakriti is of all this duality. He is paraha. He is far beyond, untouchable by these things. But then, with this three gunas, sattva, rajas, tama gunas, sattvam rajas tama iti prakrite natmano gunaha natesham yugapadrajan hrasa ullasa evava. He says, with these three gunas which are not there in the Lord, it is there in His Shakti, which is Maya or Prakriti. If you call it Prakriti, then He is the Purusha. And in this Prakriti are these three qualities. And these three qualities are constantly trying to override each other. When it has to be Sattvic time, either Rajasic or Tamasic time takes over. When it has to be Rajasic time, it is the Sattvic or the Tamasic time takes over. When it has to be Tamasic, your mind is Rajasic or Sattvic. Now let me put it in a way that we understand in our day-to-day life. How does this override happen? We've just woken up from our bed. And as soon as we are up, has it not happened that many times we say, I am tired? You just got out of the bed. How can you be tired? At that time, you should have been the most sattvic time, most pleasant, peaceful time. But you start out with tamasic time. Another example that can be taken of sattva being taken over by rajas is when you sit on the seat of puja, meditation or japa. Till then your mind is okay. After you sit on the seat and try to do some japa, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. I wish my Guruji would have given me a smaller mantra. This is such a long mantra, He has asked me to do 100 malas every day. This mantra, it is such long. If it was shorter, Ram, 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 Rama, 100 malas, ho jayega. I don't know, why did my Guru, I think he was not in a good mood. I think I should go and ask him again. Instead of doing the japa, you are thinking of something else. The rajasic nature of the mind takes over. So they are like self-cancelling. I mean, like they are. See, these three gunas, there is nothing wrong in them. But then when they start overriding into each other's mode, that is when we start having a problem. Now about the tamoguna. Tamoguna is also good. In proper time, it has to have in its own time. Now tamoguna is when you have to sleep. And you are tossing and turning in your bed. पता ही नींद ही नहीं लगता है. So our Guruji, Swami Tejomayananji, he would say, for such people I prescribe to read thermodynamics. 2 pages into it, they become static. Because when you start reading heavy subject, and that is why I tell people, do not read Bhagavad Gita just before going to sleep. You will never proceed in reading. You might proceed in sleeping, but never in reading. It will never move forward. So that is where it is tamas that has to be invoked, or sattva that has to be invoked while you are in satsang, and it is tamas that gets invoked. It is like, a little twisty. So he says there are these different kinds of gunas which keep eating into each other, and because of which we start behaving into that pattern of tamoguna, rajoguna or sattva-guna. And he says, tat pratyanika suran surapriyaha rajastamaskan pramanyotyashruvaha. We are in the 11th shloka. Those of you who are following. So he says, it is when these people are in the tamasic guna and it is going to be totally imbalanced that the Lord comes to eradicate them, annihilate them. But this annihilation is not because it has been pain or it has been something hurting him. Now this is something very beautiful that Naradji explains. Sorry, it is Shukadevji who explains. So he says, Atraivodahritah purvam itihasas surarshina pritya mahakrato rajan pruchhater jata shatrave. He says, in order to explain this, I'll tell you a story. But understand this concept, why I am trying to explain this story. He says, the Lord who is Nishkriyaha, Ajaha, Nirmalaha, who is untouched by this Prakriti, it appears from our standpoint that he is killing these people who are totally asuric and rakshasic. But from his standpoint, they are not evaluated from that kind of perspective. Then how does he see it? He says, in order to explain that, I am trying to tell you this story. This story happened when Rajasuya Yajna was being performed by Yudhishthira. So he invites the Uttama Purusha who was present in that Sabha. He invites the Uttama Purusha to offer Pada Puja. That is how you start the Rajasuya Yajna. So most of them thought he would invite Bhishma. No, Bhishma was done. They thought that they would invite somebody elderly. But then he ends up inviting Krishna. Now the moment Krishna is invited to the throne and then he is made to sit and he is about to start the puja, then these two, Dantavakra and Shishupala, they both jump into the main podium and start bashing, start with such bad words to the Lord. And we know what story, they were both killed. Now Yudhishthira is disturbed not because they are killed. Yudhishthira is disturbed because after being killed they were such cruel. Their or their souls, they come and merge into the Lord. He said, wait. They are the ones who have been scolding you, they are the ones who have been using all bad words, doing all wrong things. And today is, when you kill them, they both come and merge in you, which is not even kind of available for the greatest bhaktas. How is it that these cruel people get this kind of great treatment? This is what Yudhishthira asked. Aho atyadbhutam. Atyadbhutam. This is like, wow, how did this happen? How did the Lord allow this to happen? If I had known, I would have done that then. If my scolding or if my using this bad word with the Lord is what takes me to Him closer, that's a good method then. We have been taught day in and day out, we shouldn't be insulting, we should not do this, we should not keep our feet towards the Lord, we should not, so much of rules and restrictions, and these fellows have no rules and no restrictions and then do all wrong things. Yes, they get killed, but their Atma, why does it merge into the Lord? How fair is it? So he says, after having heard, and Yudhishthira also says, Dhamagosha sudah papaha arabhya kalabhashanat. Dhamagosha sutaha, sons of Dhamagosha, Dantavakra and Shishupala, it seems the day they started to speak, they did not say Amma or Ma. The day they learned to speak, they started scolding, they started criticizing the Lord. That is how they grew up. This everybody knows. Govinde, Dantavaktrascha Durmatihi. I mean, you know about their Durmati right from that age. Katham Tasmin Bhagavati, how did they merge into the Lord? So this question was asked by Yudhishthira to Narada, who was also present there. So Naraji says, this is a beautiful part, and this gives such a beautiful clarity into our scriptures. He says, Nindastava satkaran yat karartham kalevaram pradhana parayo rajan avivekena kalpitam. Hey Rajan, hey Yudhishthira, Ninda, Stuti and such things are normally for this body. What reacts is this component of body, mind and intellect to that Ninda and Stuti. So it is from the bodily identification that we react. Supposing you were asleep, deep asleep, not acting. Supposing you were deep asleep and I come and scold you. Would it matter? Would it even register? Why? Even you are awake. I scold you in a language which you don't understand. When people say, "Maja kya hai?" If you scold somebody and they don't understand what you are scolding, there is no fun in scolding then. Scold them in their language. That is how you are taught. Now when here they are talking about the scolding, you tend to react to that mana, avamana and tiraskara or stuti, whatever it is, because we are identified with this equipments of body, mind and intellect. So intensely identified that anything that is done to this body or mind or intellect, we tend to immediately defend ourselves. If it is a satkara, yeah, right, I am the one, it's me. And if there is somebody scolding, how dare you do that to me? Dare you do that again? And we start being in those phases. Now the Lord, who is far beyond this identification, He would not feel insulted or He would not feel elated, He would not feel anything done by anybody. So in the 25th shloka he says, this is the most important shloka here. He says, Tasmad vairānubandhena nirvairena bhayena va snehat kamena va yunjat kathanchit nekshate prathak. The Lord, whether you go with vaira bhava with enmity, with bhakti bhava, or you go with bhaya, or you go with sneha, or you go with kamana, whatever be your intensity of emotion, the Lord does not look at the emotion, but He looks at the intensity. Meaning what? Somebody speak in English. Okay, coming to the normal language, wherein in our day-to-day language, if we have that 100% intensity in whatever is the emotion, but with that emotion, with that intensity, we are constantly thinking about the Lord. Whether it is with enmity, whether it is with shatrutva, whether it is with whatever mode of our emotion, but we are constantly engaged in thinking about the Lord. In fact, he goes to the next shloka, he says, Yatha vairānubandhena. See, that kind of intensity that is born because of enmity, na tatha bhakti yogena. Iti me nischita matihi. This is in the 26th shloka, he says, Iti me nischita mati. It is my firm conviction that the kind of intensity that you can get with enmity, you don't get it with even bhakti bhava. It's my firm conviction. So maybe it's a good idea to pick on the Lord. So whatever be the intensity, whether it is sneha, whether it is dasya bhava, whether it is with kama bhava, whether it is with vaira bhava or bhakti bhava, may that bhava be 100%. Now we will see in this, there were Kamsa. His soul also merged into the Lord. And he was the one who created, who had imprisoned his parents and killed the earlier children. But then he was in such intense bhaya, fear, that he was hallucinating, that there were kids crying and there would be kid coming, jumping on his throat, killing him. And he would be constantly thinking about Lord. Because his coming, his name, everything was announced to him way earlier. He just was scared. He would get in the middle of night, get up in the middle of night with all sweaty and fearful. But his intensity of fear made him think of the Lord 100%. Another example that you can take is Draupadi. She says, Lord, I have been with my kids, I have grown. I am not complaining about how my life has been. Now imagine Draupadi, she is not Draupadi, it is her mother-in-law, Kunti Devi. So Kunti Devi, she says, entire life I don't mind how my experiences were. Whatever be that experiences that I have gone through, it was a great opportunity for me to remember you always. If it takes that it is dukkha that will create an environment in my heart to think about you, may my life be filled with dukkha. She is not a masochist who is in love with pain. But she says, if it takes dukkha to bring love for you in my heart, may it be dukkha the cause, but let me be remembering you always. So we keep hearing about the other aspects of the Lord, other bhaktas who keep devoting their life. Here it is Shishupala and Dantavakra who are out of hatred, enmity. But their hatred was pure, guiltless hatred. There was no guilt at all. 100% hatred. Kamsa's was 100% fear. Kunti Devi's was completely in dukkha. I mean, if you look at their life, we read through Mahabharata, we go through the entire Mahabharata, but we seldom catch this point. Now, if you look at the lifespan of the Pandavas, when they were at war, they were in their late 80s. They were Vayovruddha. And constantly in their life, there was not a single moment of peaceful happenings. Escape from here, hide here, try to protect, try to defend, you build something, it is burnt, and every walk of their life, every moment of their life, there was not a single peaceful happening in their life. In spite of the Lord being with them. That is a major thing that to be understood. Then you might ask, why should I need a Lord then? If He cannot change these happenings and bring in little peace. It is not about the happenings that will give you the happiness. In spite of the happenings, they were at peace. They were completely at peace. Why? They had the Lord with them. And their intense sneha bhava. This is what even Naradji says here. He says that Kamsa was because of fear, and the gopis were because of the kama, and you all, meaning you Pandavas, are because of the sneha, that you are so close to the Lord. He is not talking of the physical proximity. He is talking of them as being very close inside to the Lord. We may be very close to the Lord physically, but inside we are closed. Because our intensities are not 100%. Says if you can bring that intensity out, which is 100%, the Lord qualifies you with that intensity. And then He says, but let me warn you, as is your mode of emotion, the happenings happen around in that way. So if you have bhakti, your experience also going through would be smooth, would be really fulfilling. But if you have hatred, or if you have constant fear, what you go through every moment of your life is not so good. Though the ultimate result is amazing. If you want both the result and the journey to be great, this is bhakti is great. But when you look at the intensity, this hatred is greater than bhakti. So the Lord looks into that intensity, that 100%. As a devotee, do we have it? Whatever mode that you approach the altar? Do we have it in us to approach that altar with that 100% attitude? With complete firm conviction.